I want to give a real big shout out to David Bailey, UTXO, and Redeem QBTC. That was easily the best panel of the day that we've seen. They spoke freely and honestly, and it was really important for us to hear what their position is. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to lay the solutions that everybody's been talking about on top of this for you today. It's going to be very quick, but for those of you who don't know us, 3IQ, we're a Canadian company. We battled over 5 years with the regulators to have the first licensed, regulated and licensed closed-end Bitcoin fund in the world on an exchange, and on a major exchange, and also one of the first Bitcoin ETFs in the world. We're going to take you through a bit of that and what the power of jurisdiction is. We're going to talk about the 5 features of why we got approved in Canada, and it hasn't been approved yet in the United States. Then I'm going to really start rant and rave about the damage that's been done to the institutional business, or what's damage that's been done to Bitcoin by some of the previous players. And then finally, we'll talk about streamlining your Bitcoin exposure and how to solve the GBTC discount problem. So first of all, we are a regulated entity, so we are obligated to do 16 minutes of disclaimers. But the reality is anybody, this is not for reproduction. If you do, we are not here to sell anything. We're here to discuss industry points. Finally, 3IQ's road to regulation started back in 2015. Bitcoin was $260 a Bitcoin. We first met with the OSC and said, we want to create a structure such that investment pools, such as global multi-asset funds, global macro funds, can invest in Bitcoin, which is probably one of the most attractive non-correlated assets that we've seen. Every hedge fund manager in the world is looking for that asset. We launched an exempt market fund, which means a hedge fund, and we were told to pull a hedge fund. We said, well, it's an exempt market fund. Why would we have to pull that? You don't regulate the fund. They said, no, but we regulate you. They made us jump through a whole bunch of hoops to become a regulated crypto asset, digital asset manager in Canada. In Canada, we got our first rejection. The first rejection was on our Bitcoin fund. We went back and we asked why, and they have to respond to in writing why they rejected it. We're allowed to appeal that. We appealed that to a senior commissioner. After that appeal, we got rejected again. And then the third recourse in Canada is you get to go to a public hearing in front of a judge. We went in front of a public hearing in front of a judge in July of 2019. And 3 months later, at the end of October, on Halloween night, we got told that we had been approved and won on all our cases. What I like to do is show you at that time in October, Bitcoin was $10,000, and I had everybody was going, it's too late, and it's not too late. That was Bitcoin 10K. So here we are, if you follow the dates. We were October of 2019, and it takes us about 6 months to get the underwriting all done for the fund. And we launched on March 20th of 2020. Just happened to be D-Day of COVID. Our $100 million book went to zero. We put up $15 million of our own money into the fund, and then the rest is history. In the next 12 months, we peaked at over $4.5 billion. So the power of jurisdiction is really quite critical. What the damage that GBTC has done, and their fight, as I understand it, is they want to turn it into an ETF. Well, with the way they've been behaving as money managers for a closed-end fund, once they get converted to an ETF, who's going to hold it? Right? You're going to buy Jan Van Eck's product. You're going to buy ARK Invest product. You're going to buy a Fidelity product. You're not going to buy the GBTC product. So they're on a course for absolute suicide. So the reason when Jan says we want to keep that, well, they're going to lose all their money anyway. So if you're trying to claim that from Genesis, there's not going to be any money left if they win the strategy that they're going through. The institution's first experience in Bitcoin was through GBTC, and that didn't work out for them. So they said, how do I buy Bitcoin now? because Canada's just a little piece on the map there, and they didn't see that we had an ETF in Canada, they said, well, we're going to custody our own wallets now, and we're going to put all our money on an exchange called FTX. Well, how'd that work out for you? Not so good. So now you're the portfolio manager at a major institutional pension fund. You've been burnt on GBTC. You've been burnt on FTX. You know what? You've probably lost your appetite right now to go into it. I was on CoinDesk TV the other day, and they kind of said, well, Bitcoin's kind of boring here at 27 to 30,000. I said, boring is good. If anybody here is running an exchange, you have to be very cautious. The FOMO is out of crypto, and it's out of Bitcoin. Now it's time for the adults to step in, and the pension funds and the family offices to now take a look at the power of the asset class of Bitcoin and add it to their portfolios. We got rejected on 5 main reasons. Number 1 was custody. We had to prove that it was a regulated custodian that could custody these assets. We had to prove we could get a top 10 audit firm to be able to audit the fund. We had to prove that we could price it properly. And we had to create our own index through one of the Van Eck indexes, MVIS index, that we created with Van Eck. The next, we had to deal with market manipulation. And when we dealt with market manipulation, the Ontario Securities Commission was not able to prove that on the exchanges, the regulated exchanges, we were working with OTC desks, that there was no evidence of market manipulation in those exchanges. And then finally in Canada, you have a big stick. It's called it's not in the public interest. So they can eliminate this whole thing by saying, you know what, we know what you're doing, all of this kind of stuff, but it's not in the public interest for us to approve a Bitcoin fund. However, in Canada, we had 2 epic failures of Einstein Exchange and the famous Quadriga CX, where 110,000 Canadians lost over $240 million in Bitcoin. We had to stand there and say there's 7% of Canadians own Bitcoin. They lost it on a non-regulated platform. How can you say it's not in the public interest to regulate Bitcoin in a Bitcoin fund? And the judge agreed with us on every single one of these aspects, and we launched the first Bitcoin fund. We have to now look towards the next wave from Bitcoin is going to come from use cases, is going to come from institutions that understand the power. What we've seen in the last 6 months of Bitcoin is music to all of our hearts. We love what's going on. We love the fact that the correlation between the NASDAQ and Bitcoin have separated. We saw that correlation come because of the futures and everything else. But we've now come back to it. So we still have to solve a bunch of problems. What's going on with FTX? FTX has to liquidate, and they own a big part of GBTC. How do they get rid of their GBTC without selling it at a 50% discount? So what you have to do is you have to take a look at streamlining that exposure. I believe that the people that bought $50 billion of Bitcoin in GBTC wanted to own Bitcoin. Yes, there were some playing the arbitrage where you would sell the 25% premium and then, wait 6 months and then or you'd buy it and then you'd sell the premium and wait 6 months and multiply that out, you get your 50% rate of return. But those of us that have been around the block, we know closed-end funds with no redemption feature can go to zero. You have no bid possibilities on a closed-end investment fund. In Canada, a closed-end fund has a mandatory annual redemption feature. 3iQ's Bitcoin closed-end fund, you can redeem once a year for the ETF, which you can redeem every day. So the liquidity is already there. It's in the market. The products are already there, and those products are already available. We have the solution. We know how we can remove the discount on GBTC. But here we are, a Canadian manager saying, okay, you've got hedge funds that are going to make $10, $12 billion by a collapse of the discount. Why would I risk all the capital of my firm to battle all the legal fees that will come at us if we try to prove that we've got the solution. We're here today because Redeem Bitcoin is willing to work with us and a lot of other people to try and make this happen, because we can't do it on ourselves. If there are unit holders of QBTC that are here, people that are willing to go together and band with us, we're willing to work hard because we have the solution to make this happen. So take some time at the end of today, come see our booth, leave your name with Kevin, or send us an email on our contact information, and we'll explain to you the solution. Contact us, because we want to do this, and we want to do this with the help of our current holders. Everybody, thank you very much, and a great rest of conference for you.
Thank you, Miami, for the last 3 years in this amazing city. The whole world shut down, but Miami welcomed us with open arms. We want to show Bitcoin to the whole world. We are taking the conference on the road to set the stage for Bitcoin in a new city. Nashville. Bitcoin 2024 is coming to Nashville in Tennessee, a city that is known as a music and freedom city. Bitcoin 2024 in Nashville from July 25th to 27th.